Hey, guys. Somebody said, hey, Elizabeth. I'm excited to be here with you. If I haven't met you yet, I would love to meet you, so come say hi afterwards. So if you've been hanging out with us the last few weeks, you'll know we've been going through a series called Not a Fan. And we've been talking a little bit about the difference between being a fan of Jesus and being a follower of Jesus. And I think one of the big things that comes to mind for me when I'm thinking of being a follower of Jesus is part of what we just sang. You know, Jesus wants to be our one, our only. He wants to be the most important thing. And so that's on my mind tonight. But when I think of the word fan, since we've also been throwing that word around a lot, the first thing that comes to mind is sports. I know you can be a fan of a lot of different things, but I grew up playing sports. So that's the first thing that pops into my head. So I grew up playing basketball. That was my main sport, right? My dad played. He played in college. He coached for a while. So I grew up around a lot of basketball players and coaches. And you guys, March Madness is a whole new deal in my house. Like, my dad would walk around the house for days going, March Madness, baby! Okay, you guys didn't think that was funny as I did growing up, but I'm telling you, it's pretty funny to see a 6'5", lanky-looking dude walking around yelling March Madness. If you guys don't know what that is, you're missing out. It's the most awesome basketball tournament ever. But anyways, as I was getting older, my family moved from New York to North Carolina. And when we did, I started thinking, well, we're moving. Nobody knows me. Maybe I can be whoever I want to be, this whole new person. I can try something new. And I thought, maybe I don't want to play basketball anymore. So I'm sitting in class one day, and on the PA system, over the announcements, someone's talking, and they mentioned diving tryouts. Now, I don't dive. I probably still can't dive today. But in that moment, I thought, maybe diving, right? So I'm listening to them talk, and they're like, even if you don't know how to dive, please come. We'll teach you how. So I was like, all right, they're going to teach me. Sure, I'll go. So I show up, and it seems like we're doing okay at first, right? Like, we're not in the water yet. We're in this workout room nearby, solid ground, which I love, and we're practicing what you call the approach to the board. So if you guys have ever seen any kind of competitive diving, or maybe you watch the Olympics, like I love watching the Olympics and watching the divers because they're so talented. But if they're going to dive off of a springboard, they do this like running jump thing where they take a few steps, they go up into the air, they land on the board, and then they dive in because they need that momentum. So that's what we're practicing. We're practicing our approach. And as we're doing it, the coach is like, you guys are looking great. I'm feeling confident. And he's like, all right, guys, we're going to move to the pool now. Okay? So a few people start to go. No one looks amazing, but we're doing okay, right? I'm getting closer to the front of the line, and the person in front of me goes up to the diving board. They start their approach. They're up in the air. They're coming down to land on the board before they take off, and their foot slips. And their leg scrapes up against the diving board, and they fall in the pool. And I froze. I just stood there like, oh, you want me to do that? Not a chance. Not a chance. There's no way. And so I got real nervous, and I turned around, and I looked at the person behind me, and I was like, I just think I need to go over in my head a couple times. Like, you can go ahead. Please go ahead. I started making excuses for why I couldn't do it. And the coach started noticing that I kept getting farther and farther behind in the line, so he came up, and he was like, everything okay here? And I'm scared. I'm nervous. I just started making up all kinds of excuses. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready. Like, I just don't know if the diving's for me. Like, plus my stomach's starting to bother me. And, like, I don't know, my head kind of hurts. Like, I might be getting the flu. Like, anything I could come up with to make him say, it's okay, you don't have to do it. Needless to say, I ended up at basketball tryouts 2 weeks later, and I was so happy to be on solid ground, right? But we do that kind of stuff when we get into situations where we're nervous or we're scared or we don't necessarily know what's coming for us, and we start to make excuses, right? Because it's unknown and we're not sure. And we're not the only ones that have done this. People have been doing this for centuries. I mean, there's a story in the Bible of people doing this. Actually, in Luke, there's a story of this. And we've been talking about Luke a little bit because we've been looking at verse 23 in chapter 9. Matt's been talking about this the last couple weeks. And that verse is where Jesus is calling people to follow him and take up their cross daily, right? then later in the chapter, towards the end, verse 57, Jesus is traveling to Jerusalem, and he's got a group of people with him. And there's some guys, they're starting to have a conversation with Jesus, and they're like, Lord, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. And he stops and he responds to this man, and he says, foxes have dens, and birds in the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. And this is a little confusing, but what Jesus is trying to tell him here is like, yes, I want you to follow me, but I just want you to know this road might not be as easy as you think it is. Like when he's saying foxes have dens, he's saying they have that place of comfort to go back to, something that they're familiar with. And he's saying, if you follow me, you might not always have that. It's worth it, but it might not always be there. And so then the conversation continues, and there's some other guys saying, yeah, I want to follow you. And Jesus is calling some of them out and saying, come follow me. And they're starting to really hear what he's saying and let it soak in. And they're like, I'm not really so sure this is what I want to do. And they start responding and saying, yeah, I'll follow you, but first I got to go take care of something. Or I'm going to follow you, but I have to go say goodbye to some people first. And Jesus is like, no, I need you all in. You can't have one foot with me and one foot somewhere else. All in. Because he wants to be your one and only. Because what he has to offer is so much better. But there are people in the Bible that do notice this. And they go head first in, no questions asked. And that comes up later in Matthew. So Jesus finds Peter and his brother Andrew. And he's seeing them. He's walking along the Sea of Galilee. And while he's walking, he notices Peter and Andrew. And they're fishing, right? They're fishermen. So they've got their nets. And he stops them and he says, come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And immediately they stop what they're doing and they follow him. Immediately. That means they didn't even stop. They didn't ask any questions. They didn't hesitate. They were like, all right, let's go. That couldn't have been the most easy thing in the world. Think about it. He's a fisherman. Peter's a fisherman. This is what he's used to, right? And he's got this boat left behind and all of his gear, and he was like, sure, let's do it. Think about for a second what your dream job would be. Take a second, really think about it. If you could do anything in the world, what would it be? Let me get a few hands. Yes. Disney World. Yeah, me too. Yes, behind. Yeah. Fashion designer. Love it. Yes. Right there. Summer camp shirt. Musician. Nice. Yes. You want to be a YouTube star? All right, I can dig it. So imagine for a second, though. Imagine for a second. Whatever you just thought of in your head, whatever you just thought of, that dream job, imagine that you got the dream job. And you're living a super happy life, like everything's going well. You've got enough money to do all the fun things that you want to do. What would it take to be offered to you for you to just walk away from it in an instant? Now, I'm not saying that Peter had his dream job as a fisherman, but there's nowhere in the Bible that tells us he didn't like his job. You know, he probably worked really hard to have that job. So he's proud of it. It's part of who he is. And he just didn't blink twice and got up and followed Jesus. And not only that, but he says, Lord, I'm committing to you. You're going to be my one and only. Didn't make excuses, just went for it. And he made it a lifestyle, right? Like if we know anything about Peter, we know he was a disciple of Jesus's for his entire life. Couldn't help but go and like run to his friends and say, you guys got to come see who I just found. I found the Messiah, the Savior. You have to come meet him. You have to follow him. He's so excited, it's just like overflowing, right? And after Jesus goes back to heaven, he starts the church. I mean, his entire life is devoted to Jesus. It changes the way he lives his life. And that's kind of what basketball did for me growing up. It was a lifestyle. So I just told you guys I grew up in a house that loved basketball. And so when I was in middle school, that was the first time I got to try out for an organized basketball team. And I was so excited. Now, I was kind of a shrimpy kid, so a lot of people were like, "Are you sure that's the sport you want to play?" And I was like, "Yes, I have to. I don't have a choice." So I practiced really hard, and I made the team, and I could not shut up about it after that. Anyone. I'd meet people for the first time, and the first thing I wanted them to know was that I played on the basketball team. I was super excited about it. I mean, it affected my entire life. I wanted to watch basketball movies in my free time. I wore my hair in a ponytail every day of middle school because I wanted you to know that I was sporty and that I played on the basketball team. And my teammates and I'm still really not sure why we did this, but after practices, we would put on pajama pants over our basketball shorts. And I had to do that even when I wasn't practicing. Like if we were just hanging out at the house and my mom was like, "All right, guys, we're going to go run some errands." I'd be like, "Okay, cool. Basketball shorts, pajama pants. To the grocery store." What? Like that's not a smart fashion choice, but I had to do it because I loved basketball so much. I wanted it to be my entire life. I couldn't get to practice quick enough. I couldn't get to games quick enough. I loved it. Just took over my entire life. And no one made me do these things. No one set out a list of rules and told me, "You have to wear pajama pants over your basketball shorts." No one should ever do that. But they didn't give me a list of rules, right? I wanted to do it because I was responding to how much I loved basketball. And that's what God is telling us. When you're a follower, it'll just naturally come out of you. It'll change your life because you can't help it. It's a response. And that's kind of what Peter did. You know? It came over him so much he couldn't help it. Had to shout it from the rooftops the same way that I had to shout that I was on the basketball team from the rooftops. And it's not like these other things are bad. You know, basketball is great. Being a fisherman is great. All those things are great. But Jesus is so good. He's the best option. That's why we want to choose Jesus. So, and I think we want to. You know, we want to choose him. We want to make him our one and only. But I think sometimes what happens is he kind of becomes like this he's in this box. He's in this little compartment. We've got a lot of compartments because we all do a lot of different things. But think about your chores for a minute, right? Like we all have to do chores. It's just a part of life. That's in one of your compartments. But you're not going to go tell your friends, "Guys, guess what chores I got to do today?" Right? No. And you're not going to go ask to do more chores. And I think sometimes the way we keep Jesus in a compartment is just like that. Like we'll go to church on Sundays. We'll come to youth group on Wednesdays. We'll pray before meals. And that's all good stuff. But it's like when you're done with him, you put him back in your little box. And Jesus is saying, no. When you commit, when you're a follower, you are all in. And it'll just impact your life. It'll become a lifestyle for you. And so I just want you guys to really consider tonight whether or not you've made that choice and really made it. Think about if it's impacting your life and what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in your everyday life. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking more about what it practically looks like in your everyday life to follow Jesus. We're going to talk about what it means to follow him in your families, the role you play in your families, how you follow him in times of conflict, in times of struggle, and how you follow him in relationships, whether that's friendships or romantic relationships. But he wants to be a part of all of it. So I want you guys to really think tonight, am I really letting Jesus be a part of all of it? Am I truly following him? So in a couple minutes, we're going to have time for you guys to go with your small groups and talk about this more and really unpack it. But for now, will you guys join me in prayer? I just want to ask Jesus to be with us tonight as we go through this. God, thank you for today. Thank you for the sunshine, and thank you for Wednesday nights where we get to come here together and worship you and learn more about you. And Lord, thank you for what you did for us on the cross. And I just pray that we really think about what that is tonight and how we want that to impact our life. Lord, I pray that you help us to figure out whether or not we're being a fan or whether or not we're being a follower. And I just pray that you come into the hearts of each person here. And that you take over, that you become our one and only, because life is better with you. It's the best with you. So I thank you for all of that, and I thank you for each person in this room. And I pray all this in your son's name. Amen.